as they are printed.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries as well.
I'm sorry, could you tell me who made
Jim.
the motion for the first?
For the first, it was Melvin,
Okay,
and for the second one, it was Jim Green,
okay,
and Mallory seconded that one.
okay.
The first one,
Yeah, the first one.
I believe Jim seconds
Yeah,
that one.
I think it was Teresa second.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, first item, public hearing is variance for Loomis Funeral Home, variance from our sign code ordinance. David?
Good evening, Chairman and the Planning Commission. I'm David Moon, Planning Manager with the Community Development Department. The first case before you this evening is a request by Loomis Funeral Home for a variance for its pole sign at the front of the property. The property is located at 420 West Main Street. It's currently Zone C2 with a commercial land use designation. The existing use is a mortuary funeral home, and the future use is a mortuary funeral home. The site comprises approximately 0.75 acres. The applicant has an existing sign of 12 feet at the front of the property, in between a circular driveway along Point Blossom Trail. The current sign is 12 feet 4 inches high. Beneath the sign is a time and temperature electronic sign. The applicant proposes to change that sign to a slightly smaller business sign face, but to add an electronic reader board that would or have the capability of providing more than time and temperature. Based on the city's sign code, it explicitly prohibits electronic reader boards on a pole sign. It also discourages and prohibits pole signs except for certain situations. Based on the change of the entire sign, it is staff's opinion that the existing code can be met within the existing site by placing the sign at the front of the property in this area here. There's approximately 17 feet between the building and the right-of-way, so there's sufficient room for a monument sign. Electronic reader board at this location and zoning would be allowed. However, the code explicitly states that it's not allowed on the pole sign under section 8.0406B1. The sign poles are not allowed to hold or contain an electronic reader board. Further, the electronic reader board far exceeds the current size of the time and temperature of electronic reader. Thus, it would be considered an expansion of a non-conforming structure or use. Therefore, it's staff's position to deny this variance request. After reviewing the applicant's hardship statements, we determined that there's still opportunity for the sign to be relocated and that there isn't an adequate hardship demonstrated to rely on the use of the existing sign. If Planning Commission chooses to support a hardship and apply the electronic reader board, then two other inconsistencies with the sign code emerge. They're outlined on page 3 of your staff report, and those would be the size of the electronic reader board in relationship to the sign, size of the business sign. That, per the code, the electronic reader board cannot be greater than 50% of the total sign area. In this case, it's about 55% the size of this entire sign area. The intent is to have the business sign as the primary focus of the sign. The electronic reader sign is subordinate to the business sign. With that, that completes my presentation, and I'll address any questions that the sign committee, or that the planning commission may have.
Okay, does the planning commission have any questions of David or staff? All right, does the applicant here want to make a presentation? Bob?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Loomis. I'm with Loomis Family Funeral Homes, 420 West Main Street, Apopka, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here before you today to look at this variance and kind of go over some things with you. My family has been here in Central Florida serving this area for almost 4 generations, from my great-grandfather to my oldest son, who is actually in college right now in Tennessee, getting a mortuary science degree to continue our legacy here. My family has served Apopka now very proudly, from being Rotarian, past president of Sertoma Club, Service to Mankind, from my mom working with the Women's Club. And my family's always tried to uphold our professionalism and promote the city of Apopka in many ways, even for the old-fashioned country fair. And with this sign, I feel that if you look at the particulars here, you're going to see that this is something that I think is good for the city and where we're at. Now, by looking at this sign, on the first page, you all have a handout that I gave you when I first showed up. I'd like to discuss a few of those things. If you go ahead and turn to the first page, I'll just address the 7 questions very quickly for you, if I may. On number 1, staff had, one of their responses was a negative finding, saying that the northwest corner on the frontage of our property along Orange Blossom Trail, which extends 85 feet from the eastern edge of the driveway. If you look at that picture on the very front page there, you'll see that is our northwest corner. Now, the egress or the driveway that we have is 2 feet from our property line there. There's absolutely no way we could put any kind of monument sign on that northwest corner there. And with that being said, I'm going to try to hit all these issues in order. Number 2, there was no findings. It was not applicable. And then number 3, the response was because, basically will increase the value and so forth. Well, this sign is over a $50,000 sign. And I think the improvements will definitely have a positive impact on our area. If we could now go ahead and flip the page, and I'll address number 4. Some of these questions are positive or non-applicable. But on number 4, it's basically the same things. The staff response, their findings were positive to the improvement to our location. And number 5 is something that we've just spoken of, and I think you quoted 55%, but on your report it was 51%. If you guys would look at the way this sign is designed, you'll see there's a teardrop. Now, we did that to try to keep our sign very professional and very classy. We're always trying to promote Apopka and make it a wonderful place, which we have a wonderful town. We love this place. We've spent many, many years here. And it will be kind of up to your decision if you tell me not to have that teardrop there in the sign. And most of you, everyone in the audience can see how it drops down in the back. If we were to square that out, we would be way below. Actually, right now it's at 21 square feet. If we did that and squared it off, it'd be 22.75, which would be under that 50%. But I hope you agree with us. We really don't like just a square sign. We like to have a teardrop, something to look more professional. So when people are coming into our town, there's just not a bunch of square signs up everywhere. So I hope that addresses number 5. I know you mentioned 55%, but on your staff report it's 51. That kind of threw me off there when you said it. But basically, that can be remedied easily. But I'm hoping that you guys will go along with us in this scenario, saying that the teardrop and the blue header board and all that is it's aesthetically pleasing. So with number 4, we'll kind of move on with that. But before we flip the page, I'd like for you to take a moment. I spent a lot of time researching this, and I'm seeing studies all over, and the University of Nottingham did a study that found that street level and monument advertisement signs are more of a distraction than raised pole signs. And they did that by their tracking methods. And these are, you can find this stuff. That's why I put the footnotes, so if you guys ever want to do any research on that. If we could, we'll go ahead and flip the page. And number 6 is a big issue for me, and I'm hoping that maybe I can change the mind of the city on this issue. If you do just a little bit of a study and a little bit of reports that are coming out, a lot of towns and municipalities have went through the process of saying we want monument signs everywhere, which they are beautiful and they are aesthetically pleasing. But when you're on a 5-lane highway with over 50,000 cars passing you a day, these monument or street level signs create a huge distraction. And some of these studies, I mean, these are studies that come from very reputable organizations. The Highway Safety Manual from Washington, D.C., United States Department of Transportation, the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. All these reports come back saying that monument signs on a high-density, high-traffic area create more of a hazard than they should, and they're dangerous. And you can see these examples on your package. I'm sorry you guys don't have a package, but they are listed in there for you guys to review. And I'll be more than happy to give staff so they can review it also. But the main obstacle with these monument or street level signs on a 5-lane highway is basically, and this is the Highway Safety Manual of Washington basically said this, that a driver's eyesight, their height is 3.5 feet when they're sitting in a car. The top of the car is 4.25 feet. Pickup trucks are 7 feet. And the height requirement of these monument signs or street ground signs are 8 feet high. So now people are driving, trying to find your sign. They can't see it. You're in traffic. You're trying to peek in between cars coming at you and going with you to try to find a business. It creates a huge distraction. So I really would like maybe the city to go back and revisit this and say that maybe on that corridor of this major highway running through our city, that monument or street level signs is not the way to go. It's going to create a hazard. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, in our business, we deal a lot with the elderly. And it's projected in the next 5 years that we're going to have over 5 million drivers. It's going to double in 5 years of people driving 65 years and older. You put that with these street level signs, it's going to create a hazard. And if you look down at the bottom of that first page, the page that we're on right now, it was even brought to my attention that a driver had actually come to the city and complained, saying that one of the newly monument signs that was put on 441 created a distraction and caused them to have an accident. I don't know the outcome of that, but I know that that sign's a fairly new sign. It's about a year or so old. But you're going to start seeing these, and municipalities all over the country are starting to realize that maybe monument signs on a major highway, and they basically state anything 2 lanes or more with a heavy traffic flow, monument signs and street level signs are becoming more of a distraction than what they're worth. So it's something that maybe the city might want to revisit or look at. We'll go ahead and flip the page and take on number 7, which is more important to me than all of them. Just like we'd stated before on the first comment, when on the west side of our property line is 2 feet from our driveway. Well, on the west side, the exact same thing exists. There is an egress or a driveway that runs right along the side of our funeral home. We, purchased the property beside there. If you notice the white arrow, and I'm sorry you guys can't see this, our intentions are to build a canopy. Most funeral homes line up their hearse and their family cars alongside the chapel. And we just recently purchased a piece of property beside us in order to do this. And that road or our driveway is going to run right out the side there. If we move that monument sign to that westerly side area that was highlighted a few moments ago, we're going to be in the exact same scenario. That monument sign is going to impede, and it's going to create another hazard. So it's really a scenario where we can't move our sign. We're kind of locked into that situation. There's no other options for us because we want to grow and we want to promote, our business just like every other business wants to. So I think if you look over this and review it, I think you'll find that even through our family's values and how we try to treat the city and how we give a lot of our time from my mom being in the women's club, to my brothers at home, or myself in Rotary, being a director of the chamber, we always have the best interest, we hope, for the city. This is our town. We love it. It's a great place to live. But I really feel that if you take the opportunity to look at this, and on the very last page at the bottom of that, you'll see the two signs side by side. In all actuality, our new sign is smaller than the existing sign we have now. And I want to point one thing out. This is a time and temperature. It's a very expensive time and temperature sign, but it's made that way because we want people to understand. If you've ever been to our facility or walked through our building, we pride ourselves on keeping our stuff very clean, very up to date, and very, very professional. And that's what we're trying to exclude here too. And you have to remember, we're a funeral home. We're not going to have flashing lights in there. This sign is a time and temperature sign. It's not going to say 50% off this month. It's not going to do all this crazy stuff. I know it sounds funny, but that's the bottom line. We're trying to be very professional here. We hope that you give us the opportunity to continue that and what we continue for all these years. Thank you.
All right. Does the commission have any questions of Bob, the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
David, just a point of clarification. When you said that they had room to put a monument sign, did you say northwest corner? Or you were talking about the northeast corner, weren't you?
That's
Okay.
correct. I may have misspoke. Going back
So
to
would what he said be true about the northwest corner? That would not work?
I was referring to this location.
Yeah,
here.
okay.
I pointed to the right location, but used the wrong word.
All right.
Yes, that's the
Yeah,
northeast corner.
so-
This property here is also owned by Loomis Funeral Home.
Okay, but,
The,
Our intention is to use that property. We only bought that property for the
all right, hold on.
use your red line.
Hold on, let me ask my question. The northwest corner, do you, David, agree that that's not a good location for a sign?
Correct, as
Okay.
well as the current location for a monument sign.
Right.
Because we believe there would be line of sight
Okay.
issues at
Now,
that location.
all right, now going based on what he said on the northeast corner, if they put a canopy over there to line up cars, which a lot of places do, would that create a line of sight issue if the monument sign were where you suggested it go?
Are you referring to canopy here?
No, the red line, here. I'll show you. Canopy right there is where David.
Basically, we're
David.
going to put a canopy along here. And
Right
this-
here, David, up there, look on the screen, right there, right there.
Battle on the losers.
So if he put a canopy there, would that create a line of sight issue on the northeast corner?
Well, create other issues,
Okay,
okay? If there's a line of cars here, that's not an approved driveway.
Yeah.
It's grass and landscaping, so I don't believe any of our DRC staff have reviewed that driveway here, particularly if there's a driveway cut.
right, he said that.
Yeah.
But if they do come in the future to put up a driveway there,
Yes?
a canopy line of cars for the funeral procession, would the monument sign at the location you suggested create a line of sight issue?
I can't speculate on a plan that I have not seen.
Okay.
So it's difficult to assess. But
All right.
I can add that you already see trees here at this location.
Okay,
So the original intent of the monument signs was to put them below
the tree level.
the tree level,
Right.
so that they'd be more visible. In addition, I'd point out that Sam's Club, all these racetrack, Wawa, Florida Hospital, Waffle House, and many other recent developments are located on major highways. They had their plans submitted by professional engineers, and no one made an argument that the monument sign was less safe than a pole
Pole
sign.
sign. Okay, thank you. All right, I have one notice of intent to speak for this issue. Chris DeRocco, is Chris here? Would you please come up and give us your name and address and make your comments, please?
My name is Chris, last name DeRocco, and my address is 404 West Main Street. I'm the white T-shaped building next door. And I would just like to speak in favor of this sign change. I think it's a wonderful idea. It will definitely enhance the neighborhood. I think that the trend in this town has gone to digital signage. I think it's something that's going to come whether you want it to or not. The existing use of the pole sign, it's actually a smaller sign in square footage from what I've seen on the drawing. It's a very beautifully designed, aesthetically appealing sign. And I just want to say that, as far as I'm concerned, I wholeheartedly support it up in the air, because I can tell you that looking out of the window of the left-hand side of that building, anything at ground level will definitely impede the line of sight. So I 100% support the change.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anybody else in the audience want to speak to this issue, either for or against, or have a question? All right, we're going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. And I'll remind the commission that we're the group that eventually put this sign ordinance together and sent it to city council, so we need to be careful that we don't set a precedent with it. And also, with a variance request, we are the final authority on a variance request. If we grant it, it ends there. If we deny it, the applicant does have appeal rights to the city council, but we do approve variances and they go no further than here if we do. So, discussion from the commission.
I would make a comment, if I may. If all of the things that Mr. Blooming stated are correct, we should be looking at our sign code as to whether we want to revise it or not. But what he suggests really is significantly contrary to that code, and would introduce a lot of other situations where we would need to grant similar variances. So my inclination, as long as we have our existing sign code, would be not to approve it.
All right, any other comments, suggestions, questions, thoughts? I'm personally torn between this because I like the enhanced appearance, but then, as Jim states, if we open up this Pandora's box, then we're going to have other applicants complaining to us about the same issue. And so maybe that needs to be relooked at. I mean, one of the things Bob says, 2 lanes or more. Well, there are not many roads that aren't at least 2 lanes, so we're talking about probably 4 lanes or more rather than 2, and go from there. So what is the pleasure of the commission here?
I would make a motion that we deny the request.
All right, there's a motion that we deny the variance request. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And that motion carries. Bob, you have the right to appeal to the city council, sir. Okay, sorry. All right, the next item on the agenda is the the change of zoning. Item number 2 has been pulled. They did not get the information to us in a timely manner. So the next item, number 3, comprehensive plan, small scale future land use amendment. David.
The next 2 items apply to the Metzler property. The first request is for a small-scale land use amendment, and the second request is for rezoning for the property. I will provide both presentations.
Thank you.
And the Planning Commission would take separate action on the small-scale land use amendment and the rezoning application. The Metzler Family Trust has requested to change the future land use designation from county low-density residential and city residential, very low suburban, to city agriculture. It also requests to change the zoning from county A1 residential and city R1AA to city agriculture. The property is currently used for a horticultural nursery. This operation has been at the site for over 20 years from the information provided by the applicant. Their intent and desire is to retain this use for the long term. They want to assure that any expansion of the use can occur without be considered a non-conforming use, and by assigning ag agricultural land use and agricultural zoning to the property. It also, it better improves their opportunity to retain their agricultural credit designation with the Orange County Property Appraiser's Office. The site is located on the east side of Vic Road, just to the north of West Lester Road. This total site is approximately 9.97 acres. It contains 2 parcels. This parcel here, which is shaped like a flag and has a access out to Vic Road. That property was recently annexed into the city. The property owner in this case is asking to assign city land use and zoning to it. The current parcel that's in the city is at the front of Vic Road, and it wants to change its city designations and zoning to agriculture. The character of the general area regarding existing land use to the south is predominantly horticultural nursery. To the north, it's vacant undeveloped land that hasn't been assigned city zoning. However, the long-term plans are that that will eventually develop as a residential project or a mixed-use project to the north. So the Development Review Committee has reviewed this application and found it to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommends approval of the small-scale land use amendment as proposed, as well as the change of zoning as proposed. And I'll address any questions that the commission may have.
All right, any questions from the commission? All right, thank you. Anybody in the audience want to speak either for or against this request, both the land use change and the zoning change? All right, we'll close the public hearing. We have a recommendation from the DRC that we recommend approval of the change of zone, or change of the future land use from county low density residential and city very low suburban to city agricultural. Is there a motion that we make that recommendation?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second by Melvin. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. The second item is the change of zoning from county A1 to city, and city R1AA to city ag for that same piece of property. So is there a motion? We recommend approval of the change of zoning.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jim Green. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries as well. Next item of business is a change of zoning. Norman Sawyer from county I-1, I-5 to city I-1. And, yeah.
The next case is the Norman Sawyer change of zoning. The applicant and property owner are Norman E. Sawyer. The property is located north of 13th Street and east of Landing Lane. The existing use on the property is single family. This property currently has a city future land use designation of industrial. City zoning has not been assigned to the property. They're requesting that city industrial zoning be assigned to property at this time to be consistent and compatible with the current future land use designation that is assigned to it. The request is for an I-1 zoning category to be assigned to the 2-acre site. The county land use designation before annexing the city was industrial, and the zoning currently to the site, assigned to the site, is county I-1 and I-5 light industrial. Therefore, this proposed city zoning is consistent to that which had been assigned by Orange County. The Development Review Committee has reviewed this application and found it to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the character of the surrounding area, and recommends approval of the change of zoning. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? The commission, anybody in the audience want to speak? I'll close the public hearing, and what's the recommendation of the commission? Is there a motion that we recommend the change of zoning from county I-1, I-5, light industrial to city I-1?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries as well. Next item is a final development plan, minor Circle K gas station. Jay.
Thank you, Chairman. Jay Duvall, Community Development Director, City Engineer. Just before I start, point of clarification, if there's anyone in the audience for the Appy Lane, it was advertised in the paper, and it has been delayed until the next Planning Commission meeting. So if you're here for the Appy Lane, that's what Chairman Hooks spoke of earlier, that we did not get the information. So even though it was advertised, it has been moved to the next meeting. Moving on to Circle K gas station and retail stores. Before you tonight, a Phase 1 final development plan. Clarcona Keene Retailer LLC is the owner. Florida Engineering Group is the applicant. For 7,000 square foot retail and convenience store with fueling canopy, 12 fueling locations. It's located the northwest corner of Keene Road and Clarcona Road. A preliminary development plan is not required for this site since it's under the threshold to require that. The site, which is on the screen, the stormwater has been designed to meet our City of Apopka Land Development Code requirements. In replacing the trees, they are deficient by just over 100 inches, and we'll be paying into the tree bank $1,016.60. They're required to have 58 parking spaces. They are providing 64. There are two access locations, one on Keene Road at sort of the bottom of the screen, which will have a left turn lane to enter the site, and one on Clarcona Road to the north side of that, which will require an Orange County right-of-way permit. The elevations are in the package and meet our design criteria. The master sign plan was submitted but was not in time for us to get it final reviewed, so that will be coming back to the Planning Commission at your next meeting. There is one waiver request, which we're seeing quite often now, but the waiver request is our code requires a brick or stone exterior wall around the dumpster enclosure. They would like to have the wall replicate the building facade, and staff does not object to that waiver request. The Development Review Committee recommends approval of the Circle K final development plan. I'm glad to answer any questions.
This is more than just a Circle K. I mean, it has other
Yes.
offices on the end of it.
It has other commercial attached to it.
Okay.
If you see in the picture there,
It's kind of hard to connect the two, that picture and the gas pumps. Where are the gas pumps in relation to that picture?
the gas pumps are in this picture. The store is right here.
Right.
The gas pumps
Okay.
are out here
All right.
in the front
Okay.
on the south side of the property.
Thank you. All right, does the commission have any questions?
I have a question. Somewhere there's going to be gasoline tanks to hold,
Typically, they're underground.
right?
I don't know whether the applicant is here, but typically they're underground, usually in the general area of where the actual fueling locations are. There'll usually be some standpipes down here, probably closer to the right-of-way for venting. That'll be part of the site plan. They're on site and underground, and they've come a long way with that process, which is a state process they have to follow.
So we have no separate process with regard to the environment.
The environmental is all covered by the state requirements. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Any other questions? All right, open it up for public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to speak for or against this particular item? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And what's the pleasure of the Planning Commission for a final development plan for the Circle K gas station? Jay, this is not, David, I asked David earlier, but just for the public record, this is not in the small area land study that we're doing with the
No,
hospital?
this is
It's
outside of
that
that.
area, right?
Yes.
All right, is there a motion that we recommend approval of the final development plan of the Circle K gas station with the, included with the waiver request of the brick fence around the dumpster?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries as well. All right, here we go again. Old business, or all right, David.
Chairman, Planning Commission, I'm David Moon, Plan Manager with the Community Development Department. This case is not unfamiliar to the Planning Commission. You held a hearing on September 9th, at which time the Planning Commission, based on the evidence presented thereat, made a recommendation to City Council to deny. On September 17th, City Council held a hearing and directed the Planning Commission to rehear the case and form a statement of findings if it further determines that it is, further takes a position to deny the request to change the zoning to PUD as well as its master site plan. Based on discussions with the Attorney's Office regarding this hearing, he states that the Planning Commission needs to hear from the public regarding information and testimony regarding this application, as well as that from the applicant. Based on the direction from City Council, the Planning Commission is to, if it chooses to deny, based on the information presented at this hearing, as well as the September 9th hearing, which is reflected in the meeting minutes for that hearing date. A findings of fact to deny is necessary in order to proceed to City Council. What is a finding of fact? Finding of fact is a decision or opinion arrived by the Planning Commission regarding the issues related to the facts that are submitted for a decision by the Planning Commission at a public hearing. The facts that are submitted should be based on competent, substantial evidence related to a relationship to the comprehensive plan, land development code, and other city ordinances. General issues related to public health, safety, and welfare can be considered. One general issue is the topic of compatibility. If the motion is to deny, then there's a need to reference the fact supporting your decision. Examples would be reference to a city code or policy, or under a determination of non-compatibility, general terms as to why the commission finds it not compatible with the adjacent communities or the character of the surrounding area. This application is a request to assign a PUD zoning. Under planned unit development, it does allow flexibility in the design so long as it creates a equal or greater development design than that which would be required under straight zoning. So the intent of planned unit development offers the applicant the ability to offer some differences from the current code. Now, the issue with compatibility, under Florida Statute 163-3164, the definition of compatibility means a condition in which land uses or conditions can coexist in relative proximity to each other in a stable fashion over time, such that no use or condition is unduly negatively impacted directly or indirectly by another use or condition. That's right out of the state statutes, that's the 2014 state statutes. Now, regarding the history of this project, it's not a factor in the decision that should be made this evening. However, there's repeat questions over the history of the approval of this project, and we do also have a new planning commissioner that is starting this evening. So I do need to give a little background on the property as well as an explanation of its history. This property was annexed into the city on September 17th, 2008. At that hearing date, a preliminary development plan was also presented to City Council. That annexation hearing was the City Council hearing. The preliminary development plan was unanimously approved by the City Council with a condition that the final development plan further consider flooding issues and tree protection that were brought up by the public during the hearing. This preliminary development plan expired on March of 2009. Prior to City Council holding that hearing on the preliminary development plan, the Land Development Review Board conducted a hearing on August the 8th, 2008, at which it recommended to approve the preliminary development plan by a vote of 5-1. The dissenting vote was Mallory Walters, and the chairman at the time was their existing chairman. At the time those hearings occurred, and following the annexation, a city land use designation and zoning had not yet been assigned to the property. Per Florida statutes regarding annexations and the relationship to the future land use and zoning, as well as the comprehensive plan and development regulations, the statutes in 2007 and 8 stated that if an area annexed was subject to a county land use plan and county zoning or subdivision regulations, these regulations remain in full force in effect until the municipality adopts a comprehensive plan amendment that includes the annexed area. Thus, in 2008, when the Planning Commission made a recommendation at a vote of 5-1, and the City Council recommended to approve the preliminary development plan, it did so by finding the plan to be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan and the county's comprehensive plan and the county's land development code. In 2011, the city adopted a future land use designation of very low suburban to the subject property. Very low suburban allows for a density up to 2 units per acre. The county's land use designation was low density residential up to 4 dwelling units per acre. At that time, the city assigned a future land use designation based on Florida statutes. Any review of development plans for that property are to be consistent with the city's land development code and comprehensive plan and any other development-related ordinances that the city may have adopted. Therefore, any decision made by the Planning Commission this evening regarding this application should not reference what the Board of County Commissioners may or may not have done, because in 2008 the review was based on the county's codes. Tonight's application is based on consistency with the city's comprehensive plan and land development code. Based on the hearing on September The 9th, before the Planning Commission, the Development Review Committee's recommendation was that the application was consistent with the comprehensive plan, the city's comprehensive plan, and the city's land development code. In addition, the Development Review Committee found that it was compatible with the character of the surrounding area, subject to 2 objections within the plan related to buffering and a sidewalk that was missing along Sandpiper Street. The staff presentation from the September 9th meeting is carried forward to this evening, so I'm not going to repeat the application in a presentation from the last hearing. The staff presentation is reflected in the minutes, so our new commissioner understands. The request is to assign a city zoning of planned unit development to 58.23 acres for a property located south of Sandpiper Street, east of Usler Road, and generally west of Thompson Road. The maximum number of units that are proposed are 49 single-family residential lots. The minimum livable area of the house is 2,000 square feet. The density for the property is approximately 1.0 dwelling units per acre, and that's based on a developable acreage of 48.4 acres.
And once again, I'll point out to you that that's backwards. You did the math backwards. It's that like 0.92. 49 dwelling units in 48 acres does not equal 1 point something. Did the math backwards.
If there's
49 lots in 48 acres, you
Right.
can't have 1 acre per lot.
I did the math. I believe that calculation is correct. If there are 400 lots on 100 acres, that's 4 units per acre. So we have more lots than we have more homes than we do have acres.
Which means there can't be 1 acre per lot, not the other way around.
Since the question has been asked, although the comment was raised that the decision made by the Board of County Commission should not be taken in consideration, I want to point out some general differences between the proposed plan and that which was previously approved by the City Council with a recommendation from the Planning Commission. In the 2008 plan, which I'll show in a second, there are 3 lots located at the western end of the Sandpiper property, 2 generally at this location and 1 along Usler's. Those 3 lots were moved to the interior of the property, primarily on the north side of Lake McCoy. There's 1 additional lot along Lake McCoy. The lot widths are less wide than they were in the previous plan. These are, I believe, 75 to 80 feet wide. However, in this plan, there's the condition that no more than 15 feet can be cleared from the rear yard down to the lakeside. So these homes will be screened by the existing littoral vegetation along the lake. On the interior of the property, the lots that are abutting Oak Point, in this plan, the house is 50 feet from the property line. In the previous approved plans, the 2008 plans, they were 30 feet from the property, south property line. The current plan proposes a 30-foot conservation easement in which no swimming pools or fences or accessory structures can be located within that 30 feet. The previous plans required a brick wall. There was no condition on the accessory uses, so swimming pools could have been, swimming pools could have been as close as 10 feet from the south property line. Now, a swimming pool has to be a minimum of 30 feet from the south property line. This also applies to the eastern lots, where the house has to be at least 40 feet from the property line with a 30-foot buffer. Previously, this was only 20 feet with a 10-foot buffer and brick wall. Along the eastern portion of the property, it's the same number of lots, and the lots are consistent with the size of the 2008 plans, with the exception of these interior lots, which are 80 feet wide instead of 90 feet. The reason for that was to move the homes further to the north from Oak Point. One change that's been presented at this meeting that wasn't discussed at the first hearing before the Planning Commission is along Sandpiper Road. This won't be straight, but and unfortunately I can't rotate this, but from the northeastern corner to the stormwater pond, which is east of the entrance, there is a 10-foot landscape track, which was previously proposed. However, there is a 6-foot shrub within that 10-foot buffer with a canopy tree planted every 35 feet. That's to occur behind these lots along Sandpiper Street within the eastern side of the project. In addition to that, there is a country-style tri-rail fence that will extend from the northeast corner of the project to the point where the open space area starts at its western end. Similar to the staff presentation on the 9th of September, staff recommends a sidewalk along Sandpiper Street all the way to Usler to accommodate the pedestrian traffic that will be generated by Sandpiper, particularly the elementary school students and middle school students that are assigned to Dream Lake and Apopka Middle School. They are in the walking distance requirement and will not be bused to those schools. So we believe it's a public safety issue to provide that sidewalk. That completes my presentation on the any changes that have occurred from the last presentation and provide you with information regarding City Council's direction to prepare a finding of fact. If the recommendation is to deny, the staff recommendation has not changed from the last meeting, other than DRC does support the applicant's proposal for the new buffer along Sandpiper. DRC still requests that Planning Commission in its motion, if you decide to approve, that you require that sidewalk along Sandpiper Street. That concludes my presentation, and I'll address any questions that you may have.
Just now you mentioned canopy trees along Sandpiper. What's a canopy tree?
Canopy tree typically is a deciduous tree that is going to provide shade. A palm tree wouldn't be considered a canopy tree.
There are power lines running down there. There's no point in putting in trees to have Duke Energy come and take them half out. What's the point? If we're gonna make them, put them in trees in, and just to watch Duke Energy come by 6 months later and cut them all out, what's the point? Why do we keep doing that? Anyway, that's just a whole nother issue. Compatibility from the DRC, what is their definition of compatible? Why did they determine that this development is compatible with the surrounding area? How did they come to that conclusion?
Well, based on the information that was presented at the last hearing, a review was presented of the residential communities in the surrounding area and determined that there were lot sizes and house sizes that were compatible with that which is being proposed. I can go over that again. The lot widths that are proposed within this application.
How many lots did you find that were compatible with the surrounding subdivisions? And which subdivisions did you look at? Let's start with across the street on the north side of Sandpiper.
Okay.
Are there any of those?
Lot widths of 110 feet are compatible with the lot widths to the...
Let's talk about
to the south.
acreage. Let's talk about acreage.
Okay.
How many lots across the street north of Sandpiper have any lots comparable to this subdivision? To the north?
They are larger. They are under the low-density residential designation, which doesn't prevent them from applying to the county for higher...
Okay, but we're trying to decide compatibility. So
Correct.
everything to the north is significantly larger.
Residential is considered compatible with residential, and our future land use chart within the Land Development Code, PUD, is a compatible zoning category with a very low residential subdivision. When we go to the other surrounding...
You
neighborhoods
said
in
the
area-
DRC found this compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. That's how
Correct.
you came to your decision to recommend approval.
That includes neighborhoods besides the abutting neighborhoods.
Name one. I came prepared tonight, David. I hope y'all did. On the north side, the smallest lot on Sandpiper is 1.33 acres. It goes from there all the way to 15.51 acres. There's nothing in this development that's compatible with that. And if you want to go to the south, I've got that too. The average lot size in Oak Point Estates, not including Wekiva Landing, which are larger even, but just these lots that abut this property, the average lot size is 1.24 acres. The smallest is a half acre.
I'll have to defer to the minutes from the last meeting. But when we look at the character of the area, we have all these residential subdivisions which abut and within proximity.
They don't abut. They do not abut. They may be in proximity across another road, but they do not abut. The properties along Thompson Road range from 1.13 acres to 1.30 acres on the east side of their property. They don't abut anything smaller than an acre. So I don't see how in the world y'all came up that this was compatible with the surrounding area. To the north, to the east, to the west, to the south. If you want to go down to the southwest, Camelot, which is Sir Arthur Court, the average lot size in that subdivision is 1.21 acres. There's nothing anywhere close to this. If you want to go across the street on Usler, those lots range from 1.84 acres to almost 3 acres, 2.98 acres on Usler to the east of this property. So there's nothing compatible about it, and why DRC came up with this was compatible is beyond me, but we're going to have a talk about it tonight. I want to make a point of record for those of you that are here.
Staff presentation complete, or do you have further questions?
I'm done.
Yeah, no,
Anybody
I have a
else?
question.
All right, go ahead, Bob.
Well, in 2008, the city council approved the 49 lots. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But they were larger lots.
They were generally the same size as the lots that are proposed now, with the exception of the lakefront lots, which are generally smaller, because they were, the applicant moved the 3 lots from Usler and Western Sandpiper to that location. And then there are a few lots at the eastern end at the cul-de-sac that are 10 feet less in width to accommodate the buffer along the south property line adjacent to the Elk Point
I understand,
community.
but on average, they're smaller though, right?
On average,
The average lot size is smaller than what they approved in 2008. The
The-
city council.
the lot size, the typical lot size, yes, would be slightly smaller. However, the density of the property is also less than what it is when the council reviewed it, and the other form of this board reviewed it in 2008. There's an additional 2.5 acres that was added to this project at the northwest corner that were, at that 2008, were left, that were owned by the same property owner but left out of the project.
And what was the minimum?
That property recently annexed in the city in the last 2 years and was pulled into the project. So from that standpoint, the density of this project is slightly less than what it was.
And what was the minimum living area in 2008?
In 2008, in the approved plans, the minimum living area was 3,000 square feet. In the current plans, it's 2,000 square feet, based on the zoning category that would be typically assigned to the site. The largest zoning category is around, for straight zoning, is around 1,800 square feet. The applicant agreed to increase that to 2,000 square feet. A survey was conducted for the residential homes in the surrounding abutting lands on the north side of Sandpiper and to the south in Oak Point. There's homes abutting Sandpiper within Oak Point that are 2,200 square feet. There are homes on the north side of Sandpiper across the street that are 1,900 square feet. There are some homes that are larger, but there's a diversity that typically ranges from 1,900 to 5,000 square feet. And the 5,000 square foot homes represent a small portion of the homes that abut Sandpiper.
I think there's a big difference between 2,000 square feet and 2,000 square feet. But I also agree with you, I do think there needs to be a sidewalk along Sandpiper.
All right, any other from the board?
I have a question.
Okay.
Just for my clarification, and you might have covered this already, and excuse me if you did, how do you determine compatibility? What do you look at? Is that a definition that's been defined in the code somewhere?
We follow the state definition. There isn't a definition of compatibility within the Land Development Code or Comprehensive Plan. So we refer to the general terminology of compatibility as well as that which is within the Florida statutes. We look at the future land use designations assigned to adjacent properties. We look at the density of the property. We look at the impact on water and sewer and transportation. We evaluate the character of the subdivision design with that in the typical general area of the project. We review the comprehensive plan for consistency with the required policies, ranging from the future land use, conservation elements, transportation element, housing element, recreation, and so forth. And in the Land Development Code, there's a chart that lists the zoning categories that are compatible with each of the land use categories and the compatible zoning categories. And PUD is considered compatible with the very low suburban. And yes, we do look at the general lot sizes that are in the area. We don't look at the value of the homes. That's not an issue of compatibility from a land development code and comprehensive plan perspective. Lot size isn't necessarily an indication of the value of the home. There are plenty 5-acre parcels in Apopka or abutting areas that have trailer homes on them. And that's 5 acres is a good-sized lot. And there are homes in the Orlando area that are on 5,000 square foot lots that are worth $500,000 on a 5,000, 6,000 square foot lot. And there are homes that are 200,000 square feet that are on a half acre, $200,000 on a half-acre property. So it's a diversity. It depends on the market. It also depends on the home builder, and also depends on what the home builder believes they can market in a particular area, plus a number of other categories. But value of homes is an issue that staff takes into consideration. It's a long answer, but there are a lot of factors that go into consideration for the compatibility determination.
Jim?
Yes, I know in our meeting in September, it certainly seemed to me that the subdivision immediately to the south and immediately to the north had much larger lot sizes, and on average, and larger house sizes on average. I think it's difficult to say that the smaller subdivision proposed here is compatible. And I would think there's a significant likelihood that it would have an adverse impact on the value of the subdivisions directly to the south and to the north. I don't know if that constitutes a statement of facts, but that seems to me to be a realistic likelihood.
I'm clearly opposed, as we heard from this commission, this particular development. I am not opposed to this piece of property being developed that's characteristic with the surrounding area, and I don't think anybody here is either. They understand that's going to happen, but this is clearly not it. So I would like to work, as we have done in the past, to come to some compromise on what is compatible with the surrounding area that all these people can enjoy and Mr. Goldberg can enjoy as well. I think there's a middle ground somewhere in here. And
the only other piece of information that I can provide is staff looked at the development characteristics of the surrounding area through air photos going back from 2008 to 2014. And the development characteristics in the area have not changed one bit. So at that time, there was a recommendation to approve 49 units on similar-sized lots. The character of the area has not changed. So from that perspective...
But the land use went cut in half. There was a reason the land use went from 4 to 2, from the county to the city. So, and you keep referring back to the county's approval of this project, and you told us we can't do that. Now let's stay consistent. Either we can or we can't.
I'm not referring to the county codes and policies. I'm referring to the density of the property, which hasn't changed, and the characteristics of the surrounding area.
I agree. The characteristics
they haven't changed.
The characteristics of the surrounding area, and I pointed out to you, Oak Point Estates, the average lot size is 1.24 acres, and that includes some lots that are half acre. That's the smallest in there. And in this development, that's almost the largest in it. That's not compatible. And across the street, there are 2 acres, just slightly less than 2 acres and above. That's not compatible. And that's our statement of fact. The fact is, on the lots to the north of this proposed development on Sandpiper, let me get my right piece of paper here, excluding the 15-acre lot, I'll take that out for consistency's sake. That skews the data. The average lot size across the street and along Usler and Tanglewild is 1.93 acres. Okay? And I took out the 15-acre lot that would skew that data. The average lot size on Sir Arthur Court, which is called Camelot subdivision, is 1.21 acres. That's on the southwest bottom side of the lake, Lake McCoy. The average lot size in Wekiva Landing, which is a spur off of Oak Point Estates, is 1.63 acres. These are the statement of facts. The Oak Point Estates subdivision, the average lot size is 1.24 acres. That's a statement of fact. These are the facts that show that this particular proposed development is not compatible with the surrounding area and the characteristics of the neighborhoods that abut it. There's just no comparison.
My suggestion to the planning commission is that you proceed with the public hearing portion.
I intend to.
Listen to the evidence and testimony, and then make your determination based on the information provided at the hearing as well as that provided by staff. That completes my presentation.
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I am representing the applicant.
Give us your name and address. We're glad to see you. Who's got the green?
Nice
Oh,
to see you,
you're
too.
flashing it at yourself? Somebody who's targeting you already.
My name's Miranda Fitzgerald. I'm an attorney with Lowndes, Drostick, Duster, Cantor and Reed Law Firm, 215 North Viola Drive in Orlando.
Thank you.
Representing the owner of the property. Alan Goldberg is here with me. Alan is a representative of the trust that owns the property. And I haven't done anything in the city of Apopka for years. And so what I thought I would do, and I don't know any of you personally, and because of that, what I'd like to do is give you some credentials, let you know a little bit about me, and primarily because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but if I may, I'd like to give the clerk a copy of my resume, and I have copies.
Sure. David, we're going to run over the 6:30 time limit. I don't know what we need to do about the people coming.
They're going to wait
Okay.
outside.
Are they going to, somebody outside?
They already know that it could have run over, so
Okay.
they were going to wait
All right.
outside.
Thank you.
Excuse me, is the door unlocked? Can people get in? Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
So, as I said, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Anytime you're dealing with zoning, unlike comprehensive planning, but when you're dealing with zoning, it's quasi-judicial. That has a meaning that's important, and it means, as David has already said, that your decision, your recommendation this evening, and ultimately decision of City Commission has got to be based on competent, substantial evidence. The staff report that you've received is always deemed to be competent, substantial evidence. It's prepared by professionals. They know what they're doing. If your decision is supported by that staff report is going to be deemed competent, substantial evidence in the record. Testimony from neighboring property owners, may or may not be deemed to be competent, substantial evidence. It really depends on what the topic is that's being discussed and whether there is some kind of special expertise that they have to talk about it. For example, to talk about traffic issues, you really, just because you sit in traffic every day doesn't mean that you're really qualified to talk about whether the roads operate at an adequate level of service. To talk about the fact that you see an eagle flying over the property periodically doesn't necessarily mean that you're competent, that have the credentials to talk about whether there are listed species on the property, for example. And similarly, testimony from an attorney, such as myself, is not competent, substantial evidence unless there is some special expertise there. And that is the reason why I wanted to show you my resume. For 35 years, my practice has been limited to land use, zoning, annexations, comprehensive plans, every manner of land use that you can probably think of. and I've been qualified to testify as an expert before several circuit courts in Florida, and will be testifying to you tonight, not only as a representative of the owner, but because of that special expertise that I have, I would like to be considered to have some expertise in the matters that I'm going to be talking about. So let me start. What I'd like to do, and Mr. Chairman, I heard your comments. What I'd like to do is kind of start at the back end. As David has said, we've had a lot of discussion with neighbors since the last hearing that you had, and I was not here that time, but I have read the minutes. We've had some changes. We've had discussions with some of the neighboring property owners, and I want to hand out, if I can, some proposed or revised conditions should you choose to agree to recommend this project. I'll walk through these. So what we've done, I don't know, David, can we get the plan back up there? I don't know what you all are working from to make that happen. Anyway, what we've, thank you. Handy little gizmos there. So what has happened, you all have read the staff report that has been presented. And one correction we need to make right at the outset, and I'm sure this is not going to make the chairman happy, but we're going to say it anyway. The actual minimum, the smallest lot that is proposed in this subdivision or plan is 11,691 square feet. The staff report actually says that the minimum is 12,800 square feet. I just wanted to point out that that is not correct.
What did you say it was?
It's 11,691 square feet. The largest lot is 29,600, slightly over 29,600. So it's a blend. It's a mix of sizes. But I wanted to make that correction. On average, the lot sizes are 18,000 plus square feet in this plan. David had talked about the tri-rail fence. The second condition addition here is the tri-rail fence with dense landscape buffer to reach 6 feet in height within 2 years. I didn't put in this document that you all are looking at where that's located, but David went over that when he gave his presentation. It's not the entire frontage on Sandpiper, but it's the eastern portion before you get to the retention pond. I think that's right, David, correct? We have made a commitment to the residents in Wekiva Preserve subdivision not to have less than a 2,200 square foot house. They ask for that. They also ask, and we've agreed, that this will be a gated community. There is some, in the earlier draft, there was, that was left to be kind of an option, something to be decided later. We've gone ahead and made the commitment that it will be a gated community. And any language that's in the staff report or otherwise that would be inconsistent with gating, we're asking to have that changed so that it will be a gated community. And then also in negotiation with the Wekiva Preserve owners, we've agreed that at least 500 square feet of driveway pavers per house, or as an alternative, side-loaded or courtyard entries for each house will be provided, and that decision would be made on a house-by-house basis by the builder at the time of construction. We've asked for, and we're in disagreement with staff on this, and I just want to point this out, we've asked to have an internalized sidewalk. We have sidewalks along all the streets in the development, but we've asked to have an internalized sidewalk that would go, let me find my graphic here. Can we switch to an overhead? How do I do it? Let me just, yeah, there it is, that's better. So let me just show you. So the idea would be to connect the internal roads with an additional road that would come up in a walkway up to the corner of Usler and Sandpiper. And that way all of the students, all of the people that are living in this development could have internal sidewalk to this corner. There's already a sidewalk on the other side of Sandpiper, and our thought was we can provide for the residents in this community internally. That would be our preference. And so we would make that request. We've also heard concern last time, and from reading the minutes, there's concern just about traffic on Sandpiper. Staff agrees, our traffic consultant agrees that the roads in the area operate at satisfactory levels of service. They operate appropriately. It's not creating a degraded condition of the road network. But if it would help, and if the city would approve it, we'd be willing to install stoplights. There's already stoplights going
Stop signs or
north,
stop
south.
lights?
Not stoplights, I said that wrong. Stop signs, sorry. Stop signs here, but to make this kind of a four-way stop at Usler and Sandpiper, just to slow traffic down, because again, there was quite a bit of concern expressed last time about that. So those I'll come back to these at the end, but I wanted to next just go through. I was going to go a little bit into the history, but I don't think I really need to do that. You've heard a lot about that, and I know time is precious. So let me do this. Let me go to comments from the from the minutes of the last meeting. And in doing that, I want to show you two graphics. I don't know if I can put these up. Let me show one first, and then I'll put the other one up. Because I think this is, at least from my perspective, this is interesting and hasn't been discussed much. All right, what you're looking at here, this property, let's see if it'll show up. Yeah, there we go. This property is the property we're talking about tonight. All of the property on this graphic in yellow is in the city of Apopka. Every bit of the property that's in white on this map is in unincorporated county. So all of the neighbors that you heard from during your last meeting, the neighbors to the south, neighbors to the north, few neighbors to the east, are not city residents. And to the extent that that makes any difference in your mind, I think it's important, and I want to tell you why I think it's important. It's one thing to say that we want you to be compatible, we want you to be consistent with the neighbors to the south and to the north that are in unincorporated county. Those properties are developed under county standards. They were developed a long time ago. The county regulations to the north have that as agricultural property, just by its terms, agricultural or larger lots. To the south, the Oakwater Estates area developed in the county, it's R1 quadruple A. The minimum lot size that could have been developed in that subdivision is 1/2 acre. And the reason has nothing to do, I mean, realistically, had nothing to do with really saving trees or making it pretty or anything else. The reason you have a minimum of 1/2 acre lots is because there is no sewer in that area. Orange County did not provide sewer service to any of these areas in northwest Orange County. Doesn't exist. And so to get sewer service, you have to annex into cities. And so one of the revenue streams, candidly, that the city of Apopka has is its utilities. And so what this project is bringing to the city, not only is tax revenue, because you have the additional ad valorem tax, but you also are going to get sewer revenues and water revenues. And I don't know, I've tried to find out, I don't know if the Oakwater Estates people are on city water or county water, or if they have wells. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure they don't have sewer. And this property has to have sewer. That changes the economics, because when you have to install sewer lines and extend sewer lines, that adds a cost. And so to have larger lots and sewer lines on top of that, which benefit the city, it adds to the price. It doesn't make it as, it makes the houses more expensive. And so on a square footage basis, any of the houses that are developed in this property are going to cost more today. Prices are coming up again, and they're going to be more expensive. So we have, the other thing troubles me a bit is because we have county residents in large lot subdivisions approved in the county coming to the city and saying, we want you to duplicate exactly what we have and more. And, you know, if you don't do that, we don't want you to be approved. So they're telling the city, yes, you install the sewer system, yes, you get sewer revenues, but we don't want you to maximize those revenues. We want you to have large lots, and where you could have smaller lots, we don't want you to do that. We want you to have large lots. And in fact, your comp plan, the city's comprehensive plan, says that there is a need during the planning horizon for the comp plan that the city of Apopka will need 41,005 new single-family residential units and 7,493 new multifamily units during the planning period of your comp plan. You are not going to achieve that if you force people to have 1.3 acre lots. It just is not going to happen. And so...
Explain that. I don't quite understand why you're saying that. What do you mean we have to do what?
Your comprehensive plan, well, first off, let me back up a little bit. When the city, when any jurisdiction adopts a comprehensive plan, what that plan is, it's a long-range look of population needs, demographics, what it is that the city is planning for as it goes out on the planning horizon. And in looking at the future, the housing element that is in your comprehensive plan says to satisfy the demand that is projected to be coming to the city of Apopka, reasonably they expect that the city is going to need to approve and have available 41,005 new single-family residences in the planning horizon. And that goes out to 2030. It's not happening tomorrow. It's a long-range plan, but it's still a lot of houses. And so I understand that the people in the neighborhood bought into an area that was rural. A lot of West Orange County, Northwest Orange County has been rural for years. That fact is changing. I mean, it is becoming more urbanized. All you have to do is go down 441, 436, any of the areas. I mean, it's more urbanized today. And it's nice that there are enclaves and areas like Oakwater Estates because that provides an alternative lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that will attract people looking for those large lot subdivisions, looking for that area. But it isn't everybody. Not everybody can afford that. Not everybody wants that lifestyle. Not everybody wants the huge yard that you have to maintain and the huge pool that you have to maintain. More and more, the demographics are that you want a pretty large house, but you want them on smaller lots because the maintenance cost is so much less if you don't have the yard guy coming every week and the pool guy coming every week. So again, just demographics have changed. by making the commitment for 2,200 square foot houses on an average lot size that will be 18,000 square feet, we do think this is compatible. And we think it's particularly compatible to the areas that are already annexed into the city. Let me show you a couple of those. This is a private preserve. It's a gated community. This will be a gated community. This is R1 AAA lots in the city. The R1 AAA lots, it's interesting because the city's lot sizes are actually larger than the county lot sizes. So when this was approved in the county's R1 AAA lot size under their standard zoning is 14,520 square feet. The city's is 16,000 square feet. So the R1 AAA is what this property has. Again, this is R1 quadruple A. The city doesn't even have an R1 quadruple A category. It's not apples to apples at all between the city categories and the county categories. The city categories are generally larger. The county's R1 quadruple A, which is Oakwater, is a minimum half-acre lots. And as the chairman said, there are some lots that are half-acre in there, and you can't have them less than a half-acre because they're on septic tanks. So that was the driver that made that subdivision what it is today. The city is requiring this property to have sewers. We don't have the option of having septic tanks. Even if we went to half-acre lots or one-acre lots, the city would not let us develop those lots on anything other than sewer. So we cannot do septic, and that is a cost. And it's also a benefit to the environment not to have leaking septic tanks over time. So, under any circumstance, irrespective of what's in the code, and I know there was some concern because the staff reports talked about minimum lot size, minimum house size based on the R1A code in the city, which was in the city's R1A. It's a 10,000 square foot minimum, but the PUD that we're doing trumps that. Nothing where the code has one condition on the same topic and the PUD has another condition on the same topic, every day the PUD condition is going to trump the code. So as I said earlier, we've got one lot in this project that is 11,691 square feet, all the way up to 29,600 square feet. The average 18,000 square feet for this development that's in the city that's on sewer. We've talked another big issue at the meeting the last. Before I want to leave, I want to say one more thing about sewer lines because I think it's really important. The only way that a city grows its tax base is to annex. It can also raise its millage. It could do that, but that's not generally very popular with the existing residents in the city. So your way of raising revenues in a city is annexation. And when you have a development and you have a utility system, you're getting revenues off your utility systems, and you have a development that is going to extend sewer lines farther into unincorporated county territory, that opens up more of an opportunity in the future for the city to annex additional land and grow the city's tax base. And there will be, I am sure, eventually, some of this land, maybe not Oakwater Estates because that's fully developed, but some of the agricultural lands that is up in this area is likely to annex into the city. And because of this property, you now have the opportunity for that annexation, and you have the opportunity to have additional sewer revenues that you wouldn't have unless somebody else came in and extended those sewer lines. The, we already talked a little bit about this. House size was also a big issue at your last meeting. At that point, the issue before you was whether 2,000 square feet was going to be adequate. The city's standard is 1,800, David, is that right? Let me see. It's 1,800. So that's the maximum for straight zoning. So we started at 2,000. Many of the homeowners thought that was inadequate. We've increased it to 2,200. That's on the table today for your consideration. Very, very few of the houses in the area were built to minimum house size. And so I think when you see those minimums in code, I mean, just look at, I don't know where you all live, but I mean, if you look at your own subdivisions, when you have those minimums in single-family residential housing areas, generally the buyers come in and they want the dormer on the house, or they want the added-on bonus room, or they want something more than just the minimum. So it's not, I would say it's probably rare that you would ever have a majority of the very minimum house sizes in any kind of a mix of a subdivision. I want to talk a little bit about house value. We touched on that a bit. There was some concerns about that. I'm not an appraiser, but I do know that you can look at what houses are selling for today on Zillow and other things. The houses in this community will start, the lowest price is expected to be $250,000. And on the lakefront lots, they're expected to be $400,000 to $500,000. As a starting. These are not starter homes. These are not going to be the kids right out of college that are, have their first job and are going to get their first house. That is not going to be who lives in these houses. So value, we think, is certainly going to be comparable to what's there, and that goes into, in my view, that's part of compatibility. It's lot size. It's whether you are dealing with apples to apples. Is the infrastructure the same? Is there a benefit to the city to have lots that are smaller that generate more utility revenue for the city? And can those lots be compatible if the houses are reasonably sized along with everything else? And as far as the homeowners in Oakwater, maybe this might be, well, let me just stick with this graphic because I can show it's not quite, I have too many papers. I can find it quickly. This one might be a little better. So here you can see the R, I think you can see, is that clear enough, or is it just my eye? It's a little out of whack. Anyway, so this, hopefully you can see it. This says R1 quadruple A. That's the county half-acre standard lot size, recognizing that a number of these lots are larger because they go into the lake. All of these lots are lake bottom. Part of the lot is the lake bottom. So that's where you get your huge lot acreages for the properties in the county that are immediately south of this. Part of the commitment on this project is to have a 30-foot city conservation easement along the south boundary. And I was driving through the neighborhood today before the hearing because I wanted to see the homes and I wanted to see the property. And it is amazingly dense. I mean, you can't see anything. If this buffer stays, as it will, it is a complete buffer to everything on this side. And again, the buffer will not extend around the lake edge, but as David said, every one of the there's 8 lakefront lots, they get 15 feet each to clear on their boundary. So that is not going to be obtrusive to the neighbors across the lake. They still are going to see a heavy vegetated area as they look out. But that buffer will stay. There's not going to be pools in it. There won't be accessory buildings in it. It will remain as it is. and it is very dense. The other trees, I'm going to talk about this too. Trees were a big issue the other night at the September hearing. People were very concerned. They didn't want they didn't want this property to be clear-cut. They didn't want mass grading done. And one of the commitments that's recorded in the staff report is that will not happen. The lots will be selectively cleared. You all have a very stringent tree ordinance. So on a site-by-site, lot-by-lot basis, the goal is going to be to preserve as many trees as possible. And so as part of this project, part of the development, 15 acres here is being established as a park for the neighborhood. And and again, driving on Usler today, incredibly dense vegetation here. And I was pretty impressed. I mean, there's a huge house right here. I don't know how big that house is, but it's giant. It's a really big house. And I was thinking to myself, they're not here. They're not complaining. They know they are not going to see anything that's in this development because that area is so dense, and it will stay that way. It's open space. It's be used for recreation. It will be selectively cleared. But the buffer along the south edge, 30 feet, preservation in the city. And the reason I'm making the distinction here, that is not going to be a St. Johns River Water Management District type of conservation easement. It's not wetlands, but we will give an easement, a conservation easement to the city as an upland conservation area. Let me just touch real quick on wildlife. That was another issue. There is only one protected species on this property. It's gopher tortoises. Those are virtually everywhere. I mean, they're listed as a listed protected species, but they're just, I think I've had one site, and as long as I've been doing land use, that didn't have gopher tortoises. But they will be relocated onto the park property that's going to be retained in open space. And we talked a little bit about traffic as well, and it does, as your staff report has indicated and as our traffic engineer has indicated, traffic is not an issue for this development. It operates, the roads operate, will continue to operate at adequate, satisfactory levels of service, and the owner of the property has offered to install stop signs if the city thinks that would be beneficial to keep traffic more controlled on Sandpiper. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll just wrap up. I would very much appreciate your consideration of approval, recommendation for approval of this. I know there are a lot of issues, and I know you have concerns. We think this is the right thing for the city. We certainly know there's a market for it. It's not one of those things. There was some fear expressed at the last hearing. Well, what happens if these guys go away and it doesn't develop? There is a tremendous demand right now. I'm seeing it in my business, and I'm across. I'm sure you're seeing it too. It's just with the number of applications that you're probably getting. But this will develop, and it will be developed very nicely, and it will be compatible with the neighborhood. And we would appreciate your support. Thank you very much. I would like to reserve a little time for rebuttal, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Sure. One of the things you mentioned in your report is that there was a demand for this type of subdivision, and I agree that there is. We've seen it and we've planned for it. We've got some developments that are coming before the city, one after this with Florida Hospital. That whole area is being looked at for those types of single-family homes, and Kelly Park Crossing will be another one, and we just approved a small lot overlay to accommodate some of these smaller homes. And there is a demand for larger homes on smaller lots, I give you that. But there's still also a demand, as Mr. Hobner pointed out last month at the meeting, that the calls into his office are for, do you have some acre lots or 2 acre lots? Do you have a small lot with 4,000 square foot home or 6,000 square foot home? That he said he's not getting those kinds of calls, but he's getting calls for acreage. And, we have a development on the north side of Apopka, Bluegrass Estates, that have very expensive homes in there, and to my knowledge, they're all sold. There's not any vacant homes in there, so there's also a demand, although much smaller, for that type of development. And I could see this being similar to that development with larger lots. But I'm here to represent the people, and I don't care if they're county or city. That is immaterial to me. And I want to hear from them. You say you've met with them, y'all have met with them and have come to these terms. I will point out that on the minimum lot size and the average lot size, nothing's changed. Those are exactly the same as they were. The 18,000 square feet average, that's what it is last month when we talked, so that's not changed. And the minimum lot of 11,691, that exactly the same as last month, so that hasn't changed either. So I want to open up public hearing for anybody else who wants to speak. And first, before we get started, I'll go over those who have turned in sheets to speak. And the first one I have is Colleen Kelly, and this is no particular order, I just have them here. So Colleen will come up and give us your name, please, with your address, and make your comments. And we've got 4 minutes on the timer set. I'm going to try not to have to go by that. What we don't want to hear is what you told us last month. I already heard all that. We're going to take that into consideration again. But if y'all have met with the developer and have come to some consensus, I'd like to hear about that. And I'm with y'all. I'm here to help y'all. And like I say, I think we can leave here tonight with some compromise. If y'all haven't already accomplished that, you may have. So go ahead.
Hi, my name is Colleen Kelly. I live at 918 Palm Oak Drive in the Wekiva Preserve subdivision. I talked with one of our board members, and she's going to be speaking with the conditions that she's made with Mr. Goldberg. But what I wanted to speak on, Mr. Hooks, is what you talked about with the trees that they want to put in on Sandpiper. I agree 100% with you. They shouldn't put canopy trees there. I was a code enforcement officer for 21 years with the city of Orlando. And one of the jobs that I had was doing landscape inspections. And the city of Orlando's code has what they call canopy trees and understory trees. Canopy trees are large oak trees, large sycamore trees, sweet gum trees, stuff like that. You have the understory trees, which are your crepe myrtles, your wax myrtles, and holly trees and stuff like that. And when they wanted to change out a tree plan, they had to do a 2-for-1. So instead of putting the canopy trees along there, what they should do is maybe put in 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 understory trees of the crepe myrtle type or whatever like that. And I think that there should be a minimum or a minimum size canopy tree that should be left in the subdivision, like a 22-inch caliper or something like that. I'm not sure what caliper are on the property because I don't feel like it's my right to walk on that property. Right. But that's what I wanted to talk about is the trees basically, and what you can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with you on the tree issue. I like the canopy trees over the roads, but if the power companies are going to come cut them in half, there's no point. They look worse than if you just put up understory trees or whatever. All right, who were you referring to that's going to give us a presentation? What's your name? All right, let me get to yours and let me hear what you've got to say, and then we can go from there. Okay. Fire away. Sure. You hold her hand.
I need it. My name is Crystal Lawrence. I live at 842 Palm Oak Drive.
Michael Parenti, 865 Palm Oak Drive.
Okay.
I'm here on behalf of the Board of Directors of Wekiva Preserve. We are a gated community of 73 homes. We have an average home size of a little over 2,900 square feet. We are located in the city of Apopka on the corner of Sandpiper and Usler. Due to our proximity and the fact that we are located within the city, the homes in the proposed development will be direct comparables for home sales within our community. In an effort to protect our home values, we will not oppose and we will support the proposed development, provided homes be a minimum of 2,200 square feet, The community remains gated and the provision for public roads be removed, and each lot will have a minimum of 500 square feet of pavers or courtyard side entry driveways. The only thing I'd like to add that I wasn't going to say was, if any of you have driven down Sandpiper and seen the condition of the property in the way it is now, it's become a dumping ground, and it's not doing anything for our property values. We have no way to bring people into our subdivision that's aesthetically pleasing. If they come down Sandpiper, they see this property that has abandoned homes. It's being used as a dumping ground. If they come down Usler, the side of Usler opposite of us is county, where there's very little enforcement. So we, for all those reasons, and in an effort to protect our home values, are going to support this development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mary Swarberg on Sir Arthur Court.
I was hoping I wouldn't be first. Hi, I'm Mary Schwarberg. Live on Sir Arthur Court on the bottom side there.
519.
519 Sir Arthur Court. I live on the bottom side. I do face the tree section, which I very much so do appreciate. And I think some of the other neighbors were here before that were on the other side of Usler. Something I am concerned about that is the four-way stop. I walk my dog down Usler around 5:30, and there's a tremendous amount of traffic that makes a left-hand turn to go down to the post office where there's a light where they can get out and turn left on the park. I know that some here are very much interested in getting that four-way stop, but I do think it's going to increase the amount of traffic going down Usler and onto Tanglewild. And Tanglewild is not a safe road. So I think if you're going to put a four-way stop in there, we need to consider putting a stoplight in on Park, so that traffic will continue down that direction to make that left-hand turn. The other thing I'm concerned about is reading through some of the documents in the last month. When we talk about 2 acres or 2 homes per acre, why aren't we talking about lot sizes? And I personally do not represent anyone else here. If we could get to a half-acre lot size, I'd be very appreciative. I think it would keep my home, which is nearly an acre, it would keep the value there. And I do, and one other thing is that I bought my home about 1.5 years ago, and when my husband and I were looking, we looked for a year to find a home that did have a larger lot, that we could build on, because the essence of the area that it's in, we could make that home larger and add more square footage onto it. And that's something that I think there is a market for. It might not be a large market, but there definitely is a market, and you cannot find a home like that. We took a 1973 home, gutted it, and put $70,000 into it so far, and we have a lot more to go. There are people out there that, God, I would have loved to buy a home that would have been a half acre in that beautiful area. That I didn't have to do all that and pay more than what you're going to have to, what you would ask for a home, and that's on a half-acre lot. So I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Lou Hopner is next.
Lou Hopner, 140 East 1st Street, Apopka, Florida. I live in the city. And I live on Tanglewild, which is near this property. Number one, I'd like to ask exactly how many acres is actually developable of that property, with all the easements and conservation, well, not conservation easement, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but all the easements and so forth that go through it. I wonder how much real developable acreage is there.
48.4 acres.
Okay, the real thing is that when we say 2 units per acre, what we're really saying is the city approved low-density suburban, which is 0 to 2 acres, or 2 units per acre. So I would like to see it be 0, but I would go along with maybe a half a house per acre, or maybe even 1. But that's one thing I think you need to consider is the zoning. The low-density residential is 0 to 2, not 2, 0 to 2. I'm not sure I'd want to live in a gated community with trees around it and a wooden fence across the front. I think probably they need to put one of those dog wires around it, and when you step at that dog wire, you get electrocuted. I'm not sure a gated community is a place for a buffer zone. And the second thing, I'm not sure that you can put a walkway through a conservation area. They keep saying they're going to donate this property to the city along the lake. Well, who's going to take care of it? Is the city going to take care of it, or is the homeowners going to take care of it? You got a 15-foot right-of-way through that if you build a house there. Well, those sooner or later, those are going to get wider and wider and wider, because I know, they sell a lot of Roundup. And pretty soon you want to see the lake. If you buy a lakefront house for $500,000, probably I want to see the lake. I would. So I'd probably start clearing there just secretly without anybody knowing it. And third thing, they talk about that 15 acres, I think it is, on the west side. And I talked to the developer, or one of the representatives for the developer recently, and I asked him, I said, are you going to turn that into a conservation area? Well, who's that land going to belong to, that 15 acres? Is it going to be deeded to the city? Is it going to be deeded to the community? Or is it going to be turned into a conservation area? And I'm sure you're aware what a conservation area is. You can't do anything with your property from here to eternity if you give it to a conservation area. You can't put a walkway through it. If there is a bike path through there now, or where people ride four-wheelers, you have to put it back into its original state as it was in the early 1900s before it can be turned into a conservation area. And you certainly can't put a walkway through it. So those are some of the points that I wanted to hit, and I think we need to look at the comp plan really and look at 0 to 2 units an acre and the square footage of the houses. There's a lot of negatives to this development, so appreciate your time.
Thank you. Jill Cooper.
I'm Jill Cooper. I live at 954 Oak Point Circle on Lake McCoy. I support the decision made last month to reject the proposed zoning change. The first speaker said that the reason I have a large lot is that part of my land goes underwater. That is incorrect. I have a ½ acre when the water is at its highest. If the lake dries up, it becomes 2 acres. I believe the average lot sizes that Mr. Hooks referenced, those are correct, and those are all above water. You were incorrect when you said that my lot is large because it goes underwater. I'm just a little surprised that Mr. Goldberg sent a speaker to say that I was not competent to stand up here and speak to you and that my voice doesn't matter, even though my property directly abuts the new neighborhood. As Mr. Hooks mentioned, in the mission statement of the P&Z, one of the roles is to speak for the stakeholders. I am a stakeholder. I can see this property out of every window across the back of my house. I also thought that the definition of a PD was to give some flexibility to the developer to work with the neighborhoods to come up with something that was consistent. Even though I live a few feet outside of the city limits, I am an Apopka. I've lived here for 30 years. You spoke about taxes. I work for 22 years in the city limits. I shop here. I live here. I'm trying to stay very professional and positive, but I'm just appalled that a speaker would come up and suggest that the citizens' voice shouldn't be heard. Thank you for understanding the importance of choosing the proper density for this area. The density will determine the lot size, the house size, the setbacks, the future house size, if someone wants to expand their home as their family grows, and most importantly, the number of mature trees that can be saved, and therefore the character of the neighborhood. We look forward to a new development on Sandpiper that takes more consideration of the character and consistency and lot sizes of the existing neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Smothers? Mary Smothers? No.
Mary Smothers, 1005 East Sandpiper Street. Several things that I want to just kind of mention in light of what Jill just said. Being in Apopka for a very long time, I've lived in the house we live in now for 36 years, along with my husband and family. But my husband's in Apopka from way, way back. He's been here 71 years, almost from birth. He's never lived in the city limits. He's always been in Apopka. We feel like stepchildren with those kind of comments, you know, like you don't really belong here, but we live here, we shop here, we go to church here, and everything we do is basically around Apopka, centered in Apopka. So that kind of hurts, kind of hits kind of low. I thought Mr. Moon said that there was going to be a sidewalk on the south side of Apopka, of Sandpiper Street. Did you not say that?
That's their suggestion.
It's what?
That's his recommendation.
Okay. That sounds good. I like that idea. Because now the children won't have to cross Sandpiper, go all the way down to the corner on Usher and cross Sandpiper back. So that sidewalk is a good proposal. The sidewalk going through the west end of the property is not a good proposal. It's more direct, but if that's, like was mentioned, if that stays into the original land that it is now, swampy, woody, undergrowth. Mr. Harmon said at the last meeting, coming from his police background, he was concerned about the safety of children going through something like that, even if it's a nice sidewalk. Not only do we have wildlife and critters like that, but he was concerned more about the two-legged critters, like mankind, that could harm our children, could be hiding out and harm our children. So that, even though it's a nice idea to get the children closer to the school, there's a lot of concerns there. Many things came to my mind as people were talking here, but I did want to tell you that just today after 4 o'clock I got in my hands the first part of the traffic study, and for this area, for that area. There will be more to come, probably to do with traffic lights and things, but it will be here soon. As soon as I get it, I'll get it at the hands of the city. But I'll just read the bottom line here of these, because it's an hour by hour through a 24-hour period traffic study. So I'm just going to read a couple of them for you. North Park Avenue and Sandpiper Street. The actual daily total, Park Avenue on Sandpiper was 20,808. Sandpiper Street at Park was 2,370 in one day's time. That's why it was proposed that we have maybe a traffic light there at that, so we don't go around to Tango Wild like I've been doing for years. Thompson Road in Sandpiper. Thompson Road, the actual daily count, our total was 6,548. Sandpiper Street at Thompson Road was 2,561 cars, or automobiles. Usler Road and Welch Road. Usler Road at Welch is 420. That's today. Don't know what it'll be if we get another whole bunch of people, another whole bunch of homes. I think the reason for that low number is if you go up there, you can only turn right, because it's almost impossible to turn left, especially certain times of the day. Welch Road, 15,176 people are already going up and down Welch Road in a day's time. These are the exits for this development once they get there. Usler Road and Sandpiper Road. Usler Road right now is having 1,241 cars a day. Sandpiper at Usler, 4,548 cars a day now, at this time. That is October. I'll get more information on their study in the near future and get it in everybody's hands that need it or want it. So, I understand that this property was designed or was proposed to have a maximum 49 homes. That's maximum. That's like the speed limit. You know, the maximum speed is 65. Let's all do 75 or 80, you know. That's the maximum. That doesn't mean we can't go under it. Now, if we took those 3 homes, I think it was 3 homes, that was kind of so down at the Usler end, instead of squeezing them into the other, if we just dropped those off, we'd still have probably a lot size and a house size that I think we could live with. I think that would extend that just a little bit, because you've squeezed those properties down now to add those other few homes back into your 49 count, as well as squeezing them back up because of the buffer on the south side of the property, and that's squeezing them down again. So I'd love to see the larger homes and the larger lots, and we've talked about that, and I know you've heard enough about it. So I just wanted to be sure and give you this traffic report that I just got today after 4 o'clock, and just to take that into consideration as you're making your final decision. Thank you.
Les Hess. Yes, sir.
I'll try to be brief. I think the most important issue is that the density is not compatible with abutting property.
Could you give us your name and address?
I'm sorry, my name is Les Hess. I live at 578 Wekiva Landing Drive. I appreciate the chair's comments about city versus county. I'm sure one day I'll be in the city of Apopka as Apopka is expanding. There's something unseemly when what's happened is that the county denied the application, or at least put into it certain requirements that were unacceptable, and so the developer goes to the city. And now when it comes to the city, starts complaining about the costs of sewers and tries to pit city versus county. So that seems inappropriate and unseemly to me. This isn't a park on the west end. It's a swamp. Okay. I'm concerned about saving the large trees. You've heard a lot about that. I just wanted to highlight that. And the last thing I want to mention was the buffer zones. I think it was Mr. Hobner spoke my mind when he talked about what's going to happen. The 30-foot area on the south side that's supposed to keep the south houses from this development from being right in the existing ones. The people who live there, unless we put up some kind of wire fence or something, they're going to clean it up. They're going to clean it up back into the woods behind their house. And the 30-foot buffer zone is going to go away. And likewise, on the lake, unless there's some barrier there, there's not going to be a policeman there or even a zoning and code enforcement person saying, you can't round up this, you can't cut down that tree. It's just going to disappear with time. So the big picture is that this density is too much, and to reduce that density would reduce much of the resistance. Most of us agree that something needs to be done with this property, but something more appropriate. Thank you.
Before you leave, because you're my last one, have you got a recommendation on density?
Pardon me?
Have you got a recommendation on density that your neighbors are?
No, sir.
Okay.
I did want to mention that the Wekiva Preserve, who came up with some specifics, is
Right.
not an abutting property.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. I got to have a couple of comments. And then, yes, please come back. The traffic study that was referenced actually indicates that the roads are not at capacity, that this is not going to be a significant impact to the capacity of the roads, and that's the report that you're eventually going to get on those numbers that you just presented. So that's not going to help your calls at all. But the 400 to 500 traffic generated by this subdivision as proposed will have an effect on congestion. And again, I would like to get us through this tonight where we can, as a commission, can make a recommendation to the city council on something that we can approve, that we can agree on. And it certainly does not appear that, I'm going to ask you specifically, who in the world did y'all talk to that you came to these conclusions that they were okay with it? And don't tell me it's Wekiva Preserve, because they don't abut this property.
They abut at the corner. I mean, it's like...
They abut on the corner. They
and
abut
they're in
on
the
a
city.
corner that is undevelopable.
They're in the city as well. So.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to... I didn't make comments. They were up there. I'm, again, Miranda Fitzgerald, just to make a couple of closing comments. First off, on the buffer, the owners of the property immediately to the south, the estate property, appointed a committee that agreed to the 30-foot buffer in lieu of a wall. We were doing that in conjunction, working cooperatively with the neighbors immediately to the south. All of the lots, I left my pointer back here, but all of the lots where lots abut lots with the 30-foot buffer in between, they match exactly 110 feet across that back property line. Again, there's a 30-foot swath of trees in between, but those lot lines are the same dimension. So I'm going to hand this to the clerk for the record. This is a letter from Mike Corbin, who's one of the homeowners in the subdivision to the south. An overwhelming majority voted in favor of a 30-foot untouched natural buffer with the existing trees, vegetation, and fence. We hope it would become a separate parcel deeded to the new HOA. That is exactly what's proposed. We would like to begin referring to this buffer as forever green zone or parcel. That's the buffer that is going to be dedicated to the homeowners association with a conservation easement over it to the city. The city will have enforcement rights over that buffer. So it's not going to be owned by the individual lot owners. It would be owned by the association, again, the city having enforcement rights through a conservation easement. I'm going to hand this.
Is that a document that's signed by somebody other than Mr. Corbin?
It was an email to it's an email to Alan Goldberg from Mike Corbin.
Okay, and I'm going to throw right back to you what you threw at us at the very beginning. Unless you've got signed petition by all those people that he said, that is immaterial to me. Wes, one person's agreement with what you said, and so far I've heard nobody else agree to that. And you said he's not you said he could be an expert witness, but he's not. He claims he represents those people, but unless there's a signed petition with other signatures, it means nothing. It's hearsay.
I understand your point of view. I wasn't in those meetings. Meetings were held, as I understand it. Mr. Goldberg participated. I didn't, so he can come up and address that. But let me make just a couple of additional points. There was comments about the 15 acres on the west side. That is not all wetlands. It is not proposed to be donated to the city. It is going to be, again, conveyed to the homeowners association. It's wetlands, it's uplands, it will be open space and a park area. So it is, again, it's not, you're not prohibited from crossing or putting a trail through there or a sidewalk through there, although I understand the position preference, certainly of staff.
I think what he was referring to is you indicated that they would dedicate it as a conservation area. In order to do that, you have to take it back to its natural states, and then you could not build anything in there. So I'm assuming you misspoke about donating it as a conservation area.
No. a lot of different types of conservation. If you're giving a conservation easement to a water management district or to the state, to a state
Right,
agency,
right.
that's not the kind of conservation easement I'm talking about. I'm
That-
talking
that-
about an easement to
Yeah,
the
that
city.
was my point.
Okay. And then, I didn't, honestly, I did not mean to offend anybody in the audience. The situation is, when you're dealing with quasi-judicial hearings, is that it is evidentiary-based, and you do have to have some knowledge. It doesn't mean that people can't talk about their houses, they can talk about aesthetics, they can talk, I didn't say they couldn't talk about lot sizes or anything else. I said, when you're talking about traffic, when you're talking about listed species, when you're talking about things that you have to have some experience with, that's where it becomes a little...
I think where they were offended is when you insinuated because they were not in the city, they didn't matter. That's what offended them.
Well, they don't pay tax to the city.
Okay.
They may shop in the city, they pay sales tax, but, I understand. But I think, again, when you're talking about compatibility and when you're talking about zoning and when you're talking about comp planning, every jurisdiction has their own. And you have your comp plan, you have your city vision, and it doesn't incorporate the white areas of the map. It's what the city sees as a vision for its area. I'm just pointing that out.
I understand.
And let me introduce, I'm just going to give one other letter. We got, this is a letter signed by, hoping I can read this correctly. So it looks like Shane Rattel, R-A-T-T-E-L. Would like area to be completed. It has been an eyesore for many years. I have reviewed plans and feel comfortable with project. It's inevitable someone will develop the area. It's from on 920, she lives at 925 East Sandpiper Street in Apopka.
All right. Steve, can you take a 5-minute break?
Sure. Don't everybody go to the same restroom because it's not that big. All right, let's adjourn for about 10 minutes and we'll come back and try to iron this out. Reconvene, and we're going to pick it up where we left off. Did you have something else?
Yes, just
Okay.
very shortly.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, just to wrap up, to take one thing off the table. I've just spoken with Mr. Goldberg. We will concede on the sidewalk issue and either develop the sidewalk, put the sidewalk in on Sandpiper, or pay into the sidewalk fund. And then, again, I'd like to just reiterate the proposed conditions that I gave you earlier. We'd like to stick with those, with the exception of the sidewalk, and would appreciate your recommendation for approval.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I want to make a couple of comments before we try to... Yes, Lou, go ahead. Come up again.
Lou Hobner, 140 East First Street, Apopka. Two things. Number one, the letters that they submitted was the community boards agreed to a 30-foot buffer, I think, or a 20-foot buffer, whatever it might be, a buffer. They did not agree to 49 lots. That letter didn't say anything about approving the subdivision. Keep that in mind. It only approved the buffer.
Right.
Second thing, I would like to see a sidewalk put in, and Shirley came up with this idea, all the way up to Park Avenue. Either the city put it in or the developer put it in, not only to Hustler Road. That might be a thought. Third thing, I would like to see them go to, when we talk about a 2,200 square foot house, is that under roof? Does that include the garage?
Typically under air, right?
Livable area, heat and air.
Yeah, that just says minimum.
Okay, so we're talking about probably a 2,700 square foot under roof, 2,200 living area.
Right.
And I have no problem with that. I'd like to raise it maybe to 2,500, but I would propose that they go to at least 22,000 square feet on the lot size and come back with a new development plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Yes, ma'am? We'll get this public hearing out of the way, and then we'll negotiate. Try to.
Hi, I'm Jenny McGee. I live at 609 Oak Point Ridge Court in Apopka. One thing that keeps being said that is not true, I live on that southern border. It is not for every house a one-to-one, like you're looking out your yard and you're going to see one new house. I've seen the lot, what's projected. I'll look at 2.5 houses. I currently look at one. My neighbor, one down from me, he will look at 3. So it is not, it is true that some of the southern border lots will look one-to-one, what the lady was saying, but not all of them. And I do live in the neighborhood. I've been to the board meetings. My husband and I are now members at large on the board, but we were presented with choices, and everyone on that southern border did get to vote. I do think that was a legitimately done thing, Mr. Goldberg did but these were our choices. Either do the 30-foot buffer, which that letter somewhere did say, we want something in front of that 30-foot buffer to assure that it doesn't just get gone somehow. We want a big row of bushes. We want something so you can't intrude into it easily. But the way it was presented to us, if you vote for a fence or a wall, that means we're going to have to come clear-cut back here to get our concrete or whatever to build a wall or a fence. We're going to have to come a lot closer, and we're going to have to cut a lot more trees down. So it wasn't like we loved this idea. It was like, do you cut your right arm off or your left arm off? So that's what it really was.
Okay. Thank you. Somebody, go ahead.
One last thing. If we're talking about how many houses, at the last board meeting, and I don't speak for the whole board, but there have been comments, we want the development, but we would be a lot more at ease if we could have less homes in there on a little bigger lots. And if we could get down 10 houses, I think you wouldn't get a big argument.
Yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Ellen O'Connor. I'm at 1032 Oak Point Circle, which is in Oakwater Estates. 2 just points of question. I'm not sure who posed it to, but is there any requirement for the developer to do any type of tree study? Is there any type of analysis of that goes into that, or what is the city's position on that? And then the second question that I have is that we do live on the lake. There is movement of water. If you live in that area, if you are familiar with that area, on the north side of Sandpiper, there is a flow of water that goes on to the north side of Sandpiper. When it's dry, it looks like a pasture, but it's not. It's actually a lake area.
Right.
So where does that factor into what's being done in this development?
Okay. I'll let David or Jay address both of those.
Well, the drainage portion is, she is correct. There's a large system that was studied many years ago that comes through there, and the area she's speaking of on the north is actually Lake Caroni, and it is a dry lake half the year. But that is accommodated for in the requirements, and they will not be sending any more water off-site than what is currently going off-site from the properties. And yes, there's an extensive tree survey that's required with the final development plan, and most of you know about our tree requirements. One clarification while I'm speaking, several times it's been brought about the intersection of Sandpiper and Hustler and some possible changes to the
You're going to tell me it's county.
Yes, I am. The county would have to approve any changes to the current configuration or current signage at that intersection.
All right. I figured as much. All right. Anybody else? Mary, make it quick. We need to get out of here.
I agree. Let's go home. Those of us who can. I failed to tell you that this traffic study was done by the Orange County Traffic Engineering Department. I didn't come up with it and just by pulling it out of the air.
I understand.
Moving the gopher tortoises to the west end, which is mostly swamp, even though it was said that there are dry lands as well. How are you going to get them to stay there? If you put them in wetlands, they're going to drown. They don't like wetland. And if they're dry land, aren't they just going to march right back where they came from?
That's another whole, let's just worry about the lot sizes and get this thing done. All right, here we have before us 10 lots to 49 lots, and, you know, of course, everybody's going to like 10 lots except for these. I understand, but these people aren't going to like it, and it's not financially viable for them, and we understand that. Again, I think we all agree that something is eventually going to develop there, and we need to accommodate it. I'm not convinced yet that 49 lots at the size that's been presented is that development yet. And I was hoping y'all would come and tell me or tell us a little bit about what you would be satisfactory with. Lou suggested 22,000 square feet, which is just shy of a half-acre lot. That would put them down to about 40 lots, I think, if I did my math correctly, 41 lots versus 49. Just show me your hands. Are you agreeable with that? Okay. Mr. Goldberg, the ball is in your court. Are you agreeable to half-acre lots? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to the board, and we've got a couple of alternatives that we can do for city council. We can give them the statement of facts that they want, which is what I laid out at the beginning of the meeting on the compatibility issue with the surrounding area. There's no way it's compatible with the surrounding area, whether it's in city or county, is immaterial. The acreage doesn't match up. The land use doesn't match up with what is available to him to develop. We can do that and just recommend they deny this project as it is requested of us. Secondly, we can go forward and recommend to City Council that they approve the project under this conditions. Under a PUD, we have that right. So we can suggest to City Council, we recommend approval if there are minimum half-acre lots in the developable area that's been presented with all the stipulations that the staff has asked for in their recommendations from the staff, and incorporate that. What's your discussion? Let's hear some discussion from the commission about that.
In essence, and I think I go along with what you're saying, in essence, the city council asked us for a statement of facts.
Right.
Why we found it unacceptable. And to me, it was primarily lot size and house size. But I think we could say, based on the subdivision to the south, that we should have a minimum lot size of a half acre to be compatible with that. If you could argue, I suppose, for something larger to go between what's on the south and what's on the north. But since they're both on the same side of Sandpiper, I think you could justify a minimum lot size of a half acre. So we could go to the council as a statement of fact. We found it incompatible with that area because the lots were not at least a half acre. And if they were a half acre, we would have approved it or could approve it. I don't know if we want to mix it up that way.
Well, how many lots would there be with a half acre?
About 40, 41 under the same developable area, I'm guessing.
The 15 acres is not developable, is that the problem?
Right. I didn't make that determination. That's just what's been presented to us, is it's not developable.
Correct.
Now, as was before, they had some lots in that 15 acres. This proposal that came to us now is moving the lots out of that 15 acres and putting them into the larger area.
Why is it,
I mean, so they could...
why is it to their advantage? I don't understand.
To what?
To move them out of 15 acres and make the lot smaller.
You'd have to ask the applicant that. I mean, we review what is provided before us. I mean, setting aside 15 acres undisturbed was something staff looked at. as being more favorable.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So we're saying basically that, from what I'm hearing, if they utilize some of that 15 acres, I'm just speaking, then they feasibly could actually make the lot sizes a half an acre more easily, and they not really lose per se out on the potential houses that they want to build. Is that a yes or no? Or?
I don't know why it's been determined it's not developable, so I can't
Well,
answer.
part of it might be because of the sewer and the water, and getting utilities to it may increase the cost, those type of activities. The last survey that we had, I think upstairs, showed there is more higher ground than everybody wants to believe in that area, so there would be possibility of developing it, but the cost possibly of running water and sewer to lots within that area, because all the other area is more concentrated, you have to be able to get all the utilities and services in there.
Any other comments? I would like us to do two things. If we want to stick with what we recommended last month, and we just provide the statement of facts of the lot sizes of the abutting properties, and let City Council do what they want to with that. I mean, and again, contrary to what's in the package, we don't approve or disapprove this. We only recommend approval or disapproval to the City Council. They get paid the big bucks to not deny or approve. That's not our job. We only recommend. Second part of that is, I would like us to recommend to City Council that we could stand to approve a subdivision here if it were a minimum half-acre lots, 2,500 square feet, whatever we want to throw in there, and say, based on the same criteria of the PUD, if it were this, we could say we would recommend that you approve it, and then they can act on whatever they want to do. That is strictly up to City Council. So I'm open to whatever y'all want to do. Y'all in favor of approving this recommend?
How would we support that?
Is anybody?
Well, Commissioner Earlsmith stated he wanted to know what happened to the agreement in 2009 on the draft here. It's not the same agreement as 2009 then.
It's not the same because the land use has changed from county to city. It went from 4 to 2 dwelling units per acre on the land use. Their plan expired that they had approved with the county. So when they came into the city, they essentially didn't have a plan that was approved and still don't to this day. But again, I'm not telling a developer he cannot develop what he wants to put in there within reason. And I just believe this is unreasonable to go from acre plus lots to quarter acre and more in this subdivision, quarter, third acre, and some half acres in this plan.
Could we just explain that our reason for disapproval was with smaller lot sizes, and that we would recommend approval at a half acre minimum lot size?
What about the square footage on the houses and the sidewalk on the front, on the sandpiper?
That's part of the city recommendation, and I would go along with that if we were to approve that at larger lot sizes, or recommend approval of that.
Are we going to recommend that they have larger houses? I think somebody mentioned 2,500 square foot. I don't understand the significance between raising it from 2,200 to 2,500. We're talking about 300 square foot, and a lot of people, in my experience, want a house between 2,000 and 2,500 square foot. It matters so much as to the value of the house if you built the house to certain standards. And if our thinking is that you're going to have more yard per house, then to have a minimum of 2,200 versus 2,500 allows the capability of doing that.
I'm good with 2,200. I mean, that's what they agreed to. So what do y'all want to do? Do y'all want to?
Mr. Chairman, I like what you stated in the second fact for us, the half acre, and then when they said about the sidewalks on Sandpiper, and like we discussed, the 22 square foot on the roof, it'll actually be about 2,700 square feet. But how are we to do the wording in order to
All right,
make a proper motion?
All right, I think I hear you. Let's do this. Let's give the city council a statement of facts on why we chose to recommend they disapprove this plan as it's been presented. The fact is that the average lot size in this development as proposed is .41 acres. That's fact. The average lot size to the southwest is 1.21 acres. The average lot size to the immediate south of the property is 1.63 acres, and included in that is, well, misspoke, that's not right. Find my other sheet. To the immediate south, the average lot size is 1.24, and including Wekiva Landing, which is part of that subdivision, by all anybody would consider that, you come in the same entrance, is 1.63 acres. The average lot size, excluding the 15 and a half acre lot to the north and along Usler and on Thompson Road, their properties that they abut the property, is 1.93 acres. Therefore, we do not believe that the proposed development is compatible and characteristic of the surrounding area. And so we would have a motion that we, based on those facts, do not recommend approval of this particular development. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bob. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One opposed. Terry? All right. All right. Now, I would further recommend, and of course this is up to you all again, that we advise City Council that we would approve this proposed subdivision as it's laid out with the staff report, with the staff recommendations, with the proposed new revised conditions of the developer if the minimum lot size was a half acre.
I'll make that motion.
All right. There is a motion that we tell City Council, advise City Council, we're in an advisory capacity, that we could recommend approval if the minimum lot size was half acre in this subdivision, with everything else to remain the same, including the staff recommendations on the sidewalk, the proposed new and revised conditions of approval that the developer presented to us tonight. So there's a motion from Jim Green. Is there a second? Second. Motion seconded by Melvin. Is any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. All right, so this meeting, portion of the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your patience.